All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to start by commending our organizers for the lineup of companies here. You're seeing resource companies, PEA stage companies, and even cash flow companies. But as Tommy said, unfortunately, we don't have any of those things. This is, however, a discovery stage, and this is the stage where all of those deposits and resources that have been delineated are discovered and found. It's the discovery stage. So we're a company that's been built for that. We've got a team that's been put together, by people who have either made discoveries in the past or have taken companies to the stage where mid-tier major companies have bought them out at a substantial premium to market. And that's what we're hoping to do in this next go-around with Precipitate Gold. Why discovery? This is a slide that I've stolen from some friends of ours who are in the audience here today, I think. This gives you an indication of why we're focused on discovery. The real upside and the steepest trajectory here in terms of value add comes on the back of a discovery, and this is what we're hoping to achieve with Precipitate as we move things forward. A quick snapshot of where we've come and to get to this point where we have made a discovery here last fall. We've identified, going back this time last year, we went in and we delineated about a 2-kilometer strike of geochem. We went overlaid that with a geophysical survey that gave us a signature, a chargeability signature that we could see coinciding with that. The next logical step was to go back and do a first phase of drilling. We completed that last summer, and we made a discovery. In just 6 holes, the first ever 6 holes ever drilled on this project, we discovered on the 5th hole 98 meters of massive sulfide, within that multiple gold-bearing zones and intervals. From there, we went ahead, and we'll talk a little bit in the presentation here, we went ahead and we did a follow-up phase of IP to see whether or not we could find the same sort of characteristics that we see in that discovery hole striking out along trend, and whether or not we had the potential to find something of size and scalable going forward. This is a look at our structure. I think we've done a commendable job wading through the last couple of years in the capital markets at keeping our structure tight. We focused all of our efforts on fundraising, on things that can generate news and that can move the project forward, rather than, as was talked about earlier here, G&A and expensive office space and things like that. So we've been able to keep our structure tight with just 38 million shares out, about 53 fully diluted. Our market cap today is in the 7 or 8 million range, depending on the share price. We've got a working capital today of closer to about $650,000. And I think significantly, we've got a large insider and founder shareholder position to the tune of about 40%. So those of us on the inside have all put our money where our mouth is. We've participated on every round of financing as we move forward here, and we'll continue to do that as we move to the next phase. As I talked about a little bit earlier here, I won't go into all the individual CVs of all the people involved in the board and at management, but I'd like to point out that all the people here, again, as I've said, have made a bona fide discovery in the past, and or have taken a project and a company to a point where a mid-tier or major company has to have it. And that really is the goal for this team here. We're not built to be a mine operator. We're built to make a discovery, take it through the development stage, and into a point where a mid-tier or major company can see value. Our project's in the Dominican Republic, and for those who don't know, the Dominican Republic is a little bit off the beaten track in terms of the junior exploration space here in Canada, but there's a number of notable deposits in country, including a project called the Pueblo Viejo, which is over 20 million ounces of gold and 100 million ounces of silver. It's being operated by Barrick and Gold Corp, so you absolutely can do business in the mining space in the Dominican Republic. Part of the reason we are where we are in country, a company by the name of Gold Quest in 2012 made a significant discovery when they announced about 230 meters of 8 grams gold and 1.5% copper. Their share price went from 6 cents to $2 almost overnight. And what led to that discovery was geochem and geophysics, and this is something that Tommy touched on in his David Lowell piece. This is just basic exploration science to delineate and find targets for drilling. So we use that same, this is Gold Quest in purple here on the slide that you're looking at. We've got all the ground in yellow. That's Precipitate in yellow sitting adjacent to Gold Quest. We've got about 40 kilometers of strike where we sit right up against their concession boundary. The reason we were able to get this ground in any other jurisdiction, somebody makes a discovery, they go out and blanket stake as far as the eye can see so that nobody else can come in and sit next to them. In the Dominican Republic, you're restricted to just 30,000 hectares for any one company, and Gold Quest was maxed out at over 30,000 at that time. So we were able to go in and be swift, pick up the ground adjacent to them, and all of that ground was essentially unexplored, never been drilled, hardly a grab sample taken on this ground. So we went in and we applied the same science that had worked next door. Basically went in, we did sampling, mapping, identified areas of interest from a geochemical standpoint, went back in, overlaid that with geophysics to see if we could get a signature and delineate drill targets. This is our Ginger Ridge zone. This is the geochem that strikes about 2 kilometers from tip to tail here. We had some trench numbers and some elevated sample numbers that compelled us to come into this region. But as I said, the next logical step was to run lines of IP or induced polarization to get a chargeability reading subsurface. So you can see there the 5 dark black lines, that's where we ran our IP lines. Those are 1 kilometer in length and at 200-meter spacings. What we've demarked here in terms of the chargeability reading in those lines is demarked by the bigger, thicker red blocks. And that's where we're getting a stronger chargeability reading, and that's what you're looking for. That's the signature you're looking for. And what was quite compelling for us is that that was sitting right underneath the geochem at surface. So we were seeing 2 layers of data that was pointing us in the direction of where we wanted to be. And so from there we went in and we did 6 initial holes to test this target, obviously looking to sort of find correlations where the geochem and the geophysics appeared to be the strongest. This is what those sections look like, almost if you'd taken those IP lines out like slices of bread out of a loaf, and you can look at them on section here. You can see that the chargeability or sort of the target area that we're looking for here is in purple, specifically light purple is your highest chargeability reading. And you can see here that this was sort of strengthening to the north, and it was sitting right underneath the geochem at surface, which is demarked by those thicker black lines at surface all the way along that trace. So we went in and we did 6 initial holes testing these geophysical anomalies. We drilled the first 2 holes sort of in the center portion here of the trend. As you can see, we clipped the top of those anomalies there, those purple anomalies. We really didn't get into the good stuff. We moved down to the south and we tried to straddle a broader geophysical anomaly down there to the south. Again, not a lot of joy. But in the process of discovery, it's a process of elimination, and so you're trying to figure out where you want to be in the system. We then moved up to the north, the northernmost extent of our survey. We drilled a straight vertical hole right into that. That's hole number 5 at the top of the slide there, and that's where we hit, and that's where we made our discovery. So you get a closer look at what that signature looks like and what the analog here is that we're trying to duplicate. And this is, as you can see, it's a straight vertical hole. What's important here for us is that this mineralization is sitting at about 25 meters depth from surface. So this is a shallow target. Our friends next door at Gold Quest, their mineralization starts at about 300 meters. So this is a much more attractive target in that it's amenable to open pit extraction. And you can see here that we've got multiple gold intercepts, including one that starts right at the top there at 25 meters. And the highlight interval there in the middle, this is where we got 13.5 grams over 5 meters within a broader 18-meter interval of 4.5 grams. So what we take away from this is that this is the signature. This is what we want to find more of. And the question was, you know, that discovery was made at the northern extent of our IP survey. What happens to the north, and can we go and test to find more of that same kind of signature? And we completed a follow-up round of IP late last year and announced that in January of this year. And as you can see, not only does that signature continue to the north about 800 meters, but it gets stronger in terms of the chargeability reading, it gets wider, and it even comes right up to surface there on lines 8 and line 6, making a very compelling target. And because we didn't drill off of line 12, which was just to the south of our discovery hole, we've now got 1 kilometer in strike of very prospective hunting ground to go back in and do follow-up drilling. This is a look at that on a plan view. As you can see, this is a sizable target. It's about 1 kilometer in strike. We don't know the width extent of this yet, and that's something that we'll test with a follow-up round of drilling. But volumetrically, in terms of what we could identify here, the 3 million ounces that has been delineated at Gold Quest next door, in terms of area, would fit nicely inside of that 1 kilometer strike. So if we're able to identify more mineralization and the grades hold up, the potential to identify a multi-million ounce deposit certainly exists here. So in summary, what do we do next? Obviously, we've identified a signature, something that we know we want to go back and duplicate. We've got a sizable target to go and test with additional round of drilling. And we plan to do that this spring and summer. A couple of key points here. Number one, we're fully permitted, so we've got all the necessary paperwork in hand to move forward. Secondly, the drill rig that we used in our first round of drilling, we managed to convince the drill contractors not to take it back and store it in their shop. It's sitting on the project right next to the discovery hole, waiting to be re-engaged. So there's no mobilize in, mobilize out time. Everything's good to go and ready to go. And in terms of the weather and seasonality, it's a perfect time to be working there between now and, say, September, when the rainy season starts to kick in. So we've got a good 7 months here ahead of us that's prime time for operating. Just before I conclude, as most of you, I suppose, are newsletter writers, this will give you an indication of some of the third parties who follow the story. Brian London's got us as a buy recommendation. Jay Taylor's got us as a buy recommendation. And Eric Coffin, well, he's here somewhere. You can go ask him yourself what he thinks of Precipitate. So on that, I thank you for your time. We've got a booth outside. I'd be more than happy to speak to you individually.